The only way to play Payday 3 for the longest time was to tank up and bunker down. With the advent of adaptive armor added halfway through year 1, we suddenly had a cool new way to play that was far less passive. And here we are in December 2025, Skills 2.0, and we've come full circle. Adaptive is languishing in the mud with the death of Plate Up, whilst those archaic 4-plate tank builds are back on top. Not only is the tank playstyle massively assisted by a number of the best utility skills in the game happening to exist alongside your armor bag buffing options, it's also benefiting tremendously from a soon-to-be nerfed skill that turns the attrition-based design of resistant plate armor into a joke, enabling us to generate endless resource advantage against the cops and heal up 4 massively tanky plates of armor in the bat of an eyelid. Tanking up has never felt better, and despite nerfs to the core resistant armor type, we can more than match the 70% damage reduction of all with a few skills key to this build. This is yet another entry in my Skills 2.0 build series, the rest of which you can find down in the description, this time not focused around a form of damage dealing, but instead the raw survivability of a good heavily armoured tank setup. Let's have a closer look at how we pull this off. So although a lot of my builds are quite tank orientated, a pure tank setup is a little bit different, and I'll show you why in just a second. Juggernaut is obviously going to be a key trait as it is for so many builds. We grab extra protection, we're getting a load of value off this. It's going to be a huge reason why we don't feel any less tanky than we used to, even though the resistant plates have had a massive armor resistance nerf. I think it's 30% it's had stripped off it. We're going to start moving that in the positive direction thanks to this build. Armoured up aced, we're definitely going to need that. It's going to be armor bags. Rifleman, we're going to start over here just to push up to tier 3 so I can finish off Juggernaut with armoured up aced again. This is going to be 4 plates every time we drop it, and in fact we can get more than just 2 uses out of this with this build, at least until the January patch. It's so powerful. Beast of Burden, best skill in the game. Try and get it in every build you possibly can. There's too many bag moving heists in this game to not. And then Bastion. Right now all you need to do is basic it out. It's already good enough. When the update lands and we have to ace it to make it more useful, it might be a little bit too steep in cost, but I'll show you how you could still weave it in later. Back onto Rifleman. We ace this, we want the reload speed, we want the penetration, both are essential. We also ace out Stockpile. The ammo reserves are quite nice. Assault rifles can have some ammo issues, a little like SMGs, so we might as well pick that up. 2 more points needed here in hollow point rounds. This is going to mean 1 fewer bullets to kill on our northwest most of the time. Pretty nice buff. And then ammo funnel, just basic. We do not need the ace version of this. We have faster reload speed thanks to Rifleman. The 4-point cost is just too steep. Ammo funnel aced is not a necessity anymore, even on assault rifle or LMG focused builds, I assure you. Okay, we move on now to the professional, because this is where the rest of our tankiness is going to come from, and most of our utility. We don't have throwable skills in this build. Instead, we're going for a hostage trading setup. So Trade Broker is really nice ace. The ace effect means we do trade incredibly quickly. Consumerism and Magnetic Charm, we also basic out. I'd love to grab another point in Consumerism. The extra consumables would be nice to stay even tankier with armor repair kits. But we just can't afford that single point, unfortunately, so we have to put it over here in Head Games, basically a dump skill, to get us up to tier 3, where 2 of the best skills in the game reside. Human Resources. This is getting nerfed into the ground. Do not rely upon it. It's changing its effect completely. But as it stands right now, for this particular build, it might as well say, trade 3 hostages, get back a piece of equipment. So powerful. So if I drop my armor bag to go back to full armor, and there's about, 6 plates swimming there on the floor if I need them later, and then trade for 3 hostages, I'm back to square one, and I have it in my inventory again. So strong, needed to be nerfed, will be gone in January. This skill will be dropped in this build at that point, but for right now, definitely run Human Resources. Same with Scare Tactics. This is sort of an enabler for the rest of the build. Not only is Scare Tactics going to give you constantly enough hostages between waves to trade for at least 1 proc of Human Resources, which is excellent, it's also going to give us some extra hostages in the bank who generally will follow us around more because it's directly in front of us where we'll be intimidating them, and that's to make use of Insurance Plan, because when this is aced out we can get up to 50% damage reduction, even more than we used to have on armored builds, enough to take us over the DR cap, which I believe is 80% now. Crazy strong skill. It is a little situational. It's certainly better on some heists than others, but that's why we run scare tactics, because at minimum, this is a 15% damage reduction. Yes, it's expensive for that, but we'd really like it to be doing more than the minimum. We'd really like it to be more in the 25 to 30% damage reduction, and making those resistant plates feel just as good as they used to before the update. We have one final skill to spend. Unfortunately, we have to chuck it in what is kind of a dumb skill. We put it in focus fire, and there is a good reason for that. So we're running the Northwest, which has 2.2 points of penetration. Eventually, everyone should know that information. I'm really looking forward to Starbreeze sharing it. What that means is, to break 3 armor plates, we need at least 8 skill points in this tree, which we now have. Yeah, focus fire is not particularly useful, but it is going to make a huge difference in terms of hitting that breakpoint. That is the build. It's specifically built around the Northwest. You can make some different adjustments if you want to run a different assault rifle. Most seem viable right now, although in my opinion, you're much better off going for the sort of lower damage, higher headshot multiplier options. The KU-59 still feels excellent. Weapons like the K4 still feel really good. The Adelig and the VF7S, they still have the potential to do some serious damage, but since one-shot's been sort of put out of our range unless you're using an ultra-specific ammo build, I do think you're better off with those more consistent assault rifles, and the Northwest fills that gap really nicely. For the secondary, we don't really have any specialized skills. I grabbed the Gustini Viper. This thing is still a monster, still can one-shot headshot even without skills, I believe. So it's a worthwhile secondary to have, basically just as a sidearm. And then we run the HET5 Red Fox. Assault rifles still struggle with bulldozers. It's one of the only issues with the Northwest. You're going to need at least a mag to take one out. The Red Fox does not. It needs 2 shots. In fact, it only needs 1 shot to take the visor, and you can switch over to your secondary and do the lethal damage directly to their health pool. Really very powerful. Definitely a must-bring with assault rifles, LMGs, and sometimes with things like SMGs. It depends on how your build is crafted. Trip Laser, I always like to bring. Relative use. Armor Bag. Flashbang is our throwable of choice, I would say. You can switch between shocks, smokes, doesn't really matter. We're not, unfortunately, going to be able to replenish these, so we're only going to have a small set of usage out of it anyway. So it's really whichever is your favorite, whatever is your preference. Maybe you run shock grenades just because you don't like shields, for example. Mercenary frame, all decked out with resistant plates. Again, our goal is to be at 80% resistance as much as possible, even stronger than the old resistant plate used to be. And because we have an endlessly replenishable armor supply thanks to hostage trading, this doesn't mean 4 plates is finite. In fact, quite the opposite. We have infinite resistant plates like we used to back with Clean Slate and FAKs. Super powerful build. Hostage trading is really good. You can extend negotiation phase forever if that's what you like. I don't. I find that really boring. Let's jump into the gameplay though and see how this build plays out. Delving a little deeper into the maths behind the setup, because as a build weirdo, I find that quite interesting. As we know, all resistant plates simply granted the passive 70% damage reduction and called it a day. This meant that most heavily armoured setups were self-sustaining, outside of a potential dozer stun, well-placed nader gas grenade, or a cloaker ruining your day. That's no longer always the case, at just 40% damage reduction, but with the 8 points we have in Juggernaut, we can immediately add an extra 8% to that figure, in addition to the confusing extra protection aced effect, which expressly scales off the damage to your current plate, making you effectively tankier the closer it is to breaking. I don't know the full equation behind this, although I can hazard a guess. With 8 points in the tree, we're receiving 0.8% damage resistance for every point of trauma. Let's say, hypothetically, that bar is split into 30 trauma points. I have no idea, but this is just illustrative. From there, we drop to roughly 1/3 armor. That would mean 20 trauma points times by 0.8% DR, which gives us a passive 16% damage reduction. Again, I could be miles off here, but if anything, I might be underestimating this potential buff. With both elements of extra protection active during a heist, you're probably already looking around 60 to 65% damage reduction, not miles away from where it was prior to the armor plate nerf. When we couple that with just a few nearby hostages from Insurance Plan, 3 of which you can take on the fly thanks to scare tactics, you can see how easy it is to reach the new 80% DR cap. Then you mix in the additional immunity gained by not only your plates breaking, but also when FAKs are used, still providing an unlisted 3 seconds of invulnerability. you can see how things quickly get out of hand. Sniper shots can be comfortably tanked, and even when you are broken, the instant 4-plate heal from Armored Up 2 makes it easy to instantly turn things around. Obviously this will only be reusable for one patch, whilst Human Resources retains its current effect, but even with a limit of 2 bags, it's such an incredible ability to have at your fingertips for heavily armoured setups. Also, whilst on the topic of skills, Breaking Point is one I simply cannot fathom. The only way you could ever make this one viable is if it didn't reset upon kill and instead had some sort of inbuilt timer. As it stands, you'll build up a few bonus points of pen that never see any value, with the non-lethal shots used to scale it, simply pushing the enemy so close to death that the extra pen means nothing and fizzles out. You might think this is meant to be used to circumvent dozers and their 35-plate armor pool, but good luck with the several hundred bullets you'll need to fire from an LMG to reach that sort of penetration value. The other mathsy element of any AR setup nowadays is in how we calculate penetration values. Admittedly, you can just freely ignore this and go by weapon performance feel, but there's something quite satisfying about crafting a build that does just enough damage to clear certain breakpoints. As I mentioned during the build section, with the Northwest, that's getting it to exactly 3 points of penetration, achieved by having at least 8 points in the commando line. What this means is, with its higher than average headshot multiplier, any headshot landed on a cop with 3 or fewer plates of armor will be effectively lethal, allowing it to 2-shot light swads and 3-shot heavies. It's for this reason I've been so heavily drawn towards the more moderate damage options. With the likes of the Adelig and VF7S losing out on their 1-shot ability outside of very specific circumstances, 2 shots has become the gold standard, which a surprising number of lower stopping power rifles can hit. With marksman rifles taking over that 1-shot kill playstyle, we might as well lean into what ARs do uniquely well in their consistency and ease of use, hence why the Northwest feels like an obvious choice. Of course, this calculation goes out the window somewhat when up against different types of armor, such as with shields in their visors or dozers in their helmets. This is exactly why we pack the Red Fox though, as that solves most practical problems. And even if it can be tedious breaking down those enemy types, you do have the innate ability to survive that war of attrition when hovering around 80% damage reduction, with the armor repair kits dozers drop still being incredibly useful for armor based setups, even without the free lunch of Clean Slate. As for the secondary weapon, basically anything with a decent enough ammo economy can support, as that's one of the few areas ARs still seem to struggle with, even with basic ammo funnel providing you the old replenish effect. My controversial decision to leave out ammo funnel aced isn't entirely performative, by the way. I do think at a 4-point cost its effect feels a little milquetoast these days, given weapons just don't have the pickup rates they used to. You could obviously switch out insurance plan aced if you wanted to ensure fewer reloads, but for once I actually think with our increased reload speed, maybe it's worth looking at what attachments, specifically the extended mag, can do for you. That's it for the tank build. This one is going to change fairly significantly with the 2.1 update, but for now, going the unkillable hostage trading route seems like a no-brainer. So long as you play around your resistances and watch out for the damage snipers can still do when at max armor plate, you'll be very hard to take down. As cloakers are so heavily countered by Bastion, and they were one of the few issues this style of build ran into when taken alongside the previous skill system. Thanks so much for watching, feedback is always appreciated. I hope you're enjoying this series in general and are looking forward to the remaining episodes still to come. Take care, I'll see you all very soon in the next video. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.